All right. Welcome back to part 2 of Unit 2, where we are looking at human values, ethics, and professionalism. So far, what we have actually seen in the previous part that we looked at in part 1, we saw a definition of, as a foundation, a definition of what ethics is about. And we also looked at, why do we study professional ethics, the types of professional ethics, and also what are the obligations that we should be looking at in this particular unit, right? So we proceed now in part 2 of unit 2. We're going to look at human values, right? Human values, and see to what extent can they be applied in our teaching profession. And so first things first, we're going to define what human values are. Now, a definition of human values. Now, remember that a profession, as it were, if we have to explain who a profession is actually dedicated to the moral ideals that may in one way or the other be exhibited by the spirit of professionalism. In professionalism, where this particular individual actually belongs. Now, these ideals are what we call human values, okay? These are ideals, the human values that should be in conformity with the profession that one actually belongs to. So we are saying that these ideals are called human values, which are basically defined as the desirable features, right? That describe the character of a person. Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines values as simply the standards of human behavior, in which case this term is traditionally referred to in scriptures, and not only in scriptures, but even in a variety of textbooks as virtues. And consequently, this lecture uses the term virtues, which may, for all practical purposes, refer in general to the term human values, as it were, right? So now, humans, as we know them, human beings have the unique ability to define their identity, all right? And not only to define their identity, they're also able to choose their values. And beyond choosing their values, human beings are also, have the ability to establish their belief systems, okay? Now, all these three, all three of these, actually in one way or the other, directly influence a person's behavior. Your identity, your values, and your beliefs, they to a large extent influence how you actually behave. So people have gone, to great lengths to try to demonstrate the validity of their beliefs, including war, sacrificing their own lives in war. If we refer to the Israel to Islam, they would go to war just to prove their particular belief systems that they actually hold. Okay, now also people are not motivated to support or validate the beliefs of another when those beliefs are contrary to their own. So if you are an Adventist and you have a set of beliefs that you actually believe in, and another one from another different church comes and incites you to do or to hold their beliefs, it is just automatically that you may not be motivated to support that, because that's not what your belief system is. So people will therefore act congruent with their personal values or what they deem to be important. If you're an Adventist and you are found in a public school, Your behavior will be portraying Adventism in one way or the other, right? So a value, therefore, is defined as a principle that promotes well-being or prevents harm. Another definition in our attempt to define what values are is that basically these are our guidelines for our success, right? Our paradigm about what is actually accepted by all. So there are personal values also that may be defined as emotional beliefs in principles regarded as particularly favorable or important for the individual. So even if we have values that we hold as teachers at a given school, there are also values that we hold as individuals, by which we are actually known by those people who know us, right? Even at our places of work, there are things, there are values that our friends, our workmates will say, this Sandra does not actually like, even when other people actually would value that particular aspect. So our values, therefore, associate emotions to our experiences. They also guide our choices. They guide our decisions and our actions, right? Now, a person's observations on his environment are filtered through his value systems by way of determining whether or not that particular person should expend enough energy to do something about his experiences. So we tend to put more effort in life over things that we value most. Okay, those things that we do not value most, we will not even, we will not even engage ourselves in enforcing an output in terms of that. So a person who values God, for instance, and sees a large bag of God, okay, which is a positive value, in his path as he walks, this particular person will be motivated to reach down and pick that particular bag of God, right? And also a person who values his life and knows about venomous snakes will tend to retreat from the sound of the rattlesnake, which is a negative value, from nearby when he is actually walking in a given desert. All right. So you see how value operates in as far as our lives are actually concerned. Now, if we have to say in another way, we may describe values as scales that we use to weigh our choices for our actions. All of us have choices that we make in life. So when we are trying to weigh these, this is where values are, whether to move towards or away from that particular something that we're actually weighing. So not all values have the same weight, though, right? People tend to have more important, some people are more important than others, and then they must be satisfied before others can actually be addressed. Okay, I know when we talk about motivational theories, what comes into mind is Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow illustrated actually this particular element with his hierarchy, okay, of human needs. And so what we see in that particular hierarchy, we see survival has a high priority than security, which has a high priority than social acceptance, right? And then self-esteem can only be addressed to the degree that social acceptance is fulfilled. And similarly, actual self-actualization can only be pursued to the degree that self-esteem has actually been satisfied. So you can see that the hierarchy works on the principle of one thing after the other. One thing cannot happen before the other thing is actually done. So a person's beliefs, therefore, the values and also the identity, all these are usually acquired unconsciously, based on our personal experiences, based on our observation of others, even as we interact with others, based on our experiences as to what produces these desirable or undesirable results in a given in a given environment. For instance, when a baby is learning to walk and to talk, this is a clear example of identifying with human adults, valuing the act of being able to have the mobility and the communication ability of an adult, and also the belief based on unconscious observation that humans can do walk and do talk with actually each other, as it were, right? Now, psychologists also try to identify the parts of the human brain that are involved in producing behavior in accordance with beliefs and also with the values that people actually hold. Now, all information, it is said that collected by human senses is actually passed through what is known as a net-like group of cells, known as the reticular activating system, RAS. And they say that this particular group of cells are located near the top of the brain stem. Now, what happens is that this RAS, the reticular activating system, compares the data received and accepts, it receives this data with accepted values, positive and negative threats, and also beliefs stored in the memory, right? And determines whether or not immediate action is actually required. So you can see that it's not a reflex action, it's a systematized way of doing things to arrive at a choice, right? So the results of the RAS, therefore, when we are comparing, are communicated to the what we call the amygdala near the midbrain, right? And these are issues to do with brain cells. So the amygdala simply produces neurochemicals that cause emotions, and these emotions tend to be consistent with the nature of and proportion to the match between the environment in which a person is found in, and also the values and the belief systems that they actually hold. So the neurochemicals, right? They tend to initiate the chemical processes needed for the action to actually be taken. So if the emotions produced are strong enough, therefore the perceived information is blocked, from reaching the logical, rational, and conscious executive center of the brain, known as the prefrontal lobes, right? Now, in which case, the resulting behavior, therefore, will be automatic, not necessarily because it's logical or rational or completely in accordance with the person's strongest held beliefs, but also with the values and the identity that are known of that particular person. So by positive affirmation, therefore, you and I can, according to this psychological understanding, you and I can modify, or we can actually create new beliefs about a person's identity. Or, and we can also see what is important to us in terms of our values that we hold. So there are verbal repetitions of statements intended to become new beliefs, even as we mentioned, the values which will result in these being stored for use by the RAS for comparison with the environment being experienced. So you can see that our value systems, according to this psychological undertaking, can also be dependent on the environment in which actually we find ourselves. So this is the mechanism of how the beliefs and the values are actually modified according to psychology. What are the types of values that we have? We can quickly mention some of it. Now, there are basically 5 core human values. we were talking about core human values, and they include right, conduct, peace, truth, love, and also non-violence. Okay, these are what has been said to be the types of values, the 5 core human values, and of course, each of these actually can be discussed under a number of other themes in terms of the value systems that are being held, as it were, right? So values related to right conduct, self-help skills, in terms of caring of possessions, the diet that we take, the hygiene, modesty, the posture, the self-reliance, and also the tiredness in terms of how we actually appear, right? Other values that are related to right conduct are social skills, in terms of the good behavior that we portray, the good manners, the good relationships that we show with and amongst each other, helpfulness, no wastage, and also good environment. And there are also ethical skills that which are values related to right conduct, code of conducts, courage, dependability, duty, efficiency, ingenuity, initiative, perseverance, punctuality, resourcefulness, respect for all, and responsibility. So these are values that are actually related to right conduct. Okay, we need to take note of this. So, and then there are also values that are related to peace. And there are quite a number: attention, calmness, concentration, contentment, dignity, discipline, equality, faithfulness, focus, gratitude, and a number of all these others that we are actually listed here. These are values that tend to be related to peace. Then there are also values related to truth. These are very, very important for you as teachers, okay? Accuracy, curiosity, discernment, fairness, fearlessness, honesty, integrity. And most of these we will look at them one by one and see how they actually apply to us, even as we tend to shape our behavior. Justice, optimism, purity, quest for knowledge, reason, synthesis, trust, truthfulness, and sincerity, analysis. All these are values related to truth. Okay, and then there are also values that are related to love, including, acceptance, affection, care, compassion, consideration, dedication, devotion, empathy, forbearance, forgiveness, friendship, generosity, gentleness, humaneness, interdependence, kindness, patience, patriotism, reverence. All these are values that are actually related to love, all right? Trust, tolerance, and thoughtfulness, okay? There are also values that are related to non-violence. They can be grouped up depending on, they can be grouped according to psychological, and under psychological, we have benevolence, compassion, concern for others, consideration, forbearance, forgiveness, manners, happiness, morality, and also universal love. Okay, these are psychological aspects in terms of values related to non-violence. Social, in terms of social, we talk about appreciation of other people's cultures and religion, brotherhood, care for the environment, citizenship, equality, harmlessness, national awareness, perseverance, respect for the property, and also social justice, right? So these are values related to non-violence. Now, so let's look at some of these values that are related to whatever it is that we have actually discussed. We begin with perseverance. Now, this is a virtue. And this virtue is quite paramount, especially in as far as teachers are concerned. Now, perseverance is basically defined as persistence, right? Determination, resolution, tenacity, dedication. All these are terms that are related to perseverance, endurance, steadfast, stamina. Now, to persevere, therefore, is described as to continue, to carry on, to stick at it in a formal manner, to keep going, to persist, to plunge away, in terms of informal aspect, to remain steadfast, firm, stand fast, hold on, and also to hang on. Now, one thing that we need to get when we are talking about perseverance actually is said to have the capability to build one's character. Okay, so the more we persevere with whatever we need to persevere with, we tend to also build our own characters in that manner. What about accuracy? Accuracy means freedom, from mistakes or error, conformity to truth, or to a standard or model or exactness. Now, accuracy is defined, as correctness. It defines by a huge number of terminologies, also correctness, exactness, authenticity, truth, veracity, closeness to truth, true value, carefulness, So the value of accuracy tends to embrace a large area and has many implications. Now, for you and I as teachers, we are actually encouraged to demonstrate accuracy in our behavior through the medium of praise and other incentives that may be available. Okay, so accuracy includes telling the truth, not exaggerating things, and taking, care over one's work, being committed, right? What about discernment? Discernment means discrimination, perception, penetration, and insight. So basically, it means the power to see what is not obvious to the average person. And this is a virtue that actually is important for teachers. So it stresses accuracy, especially in reading character or motives. You're able to discern what someone's motive is. So discrimination stresses the power to distinguish or select what is true or what is genuinely excellent. So perception implies quick and often sympathetic discernment as of shades of feelings. Penetration implies a searching, a searching mind that goes beyond what is actually obvious or superficial. This is the term that is highly discussed in the area of philosophy. Okay, now, therefore, when we talk about discernment, it actually, when we talk about insight, we are talking about depths of discernment. When you have an insight, by implication, you have a deeper, a deeper sense of discernment that allows you to view things not more obvious than the average mind would actually do. So what is the evolution of human values? Where do human values come from? Now, we need to understand that we, as human beings, we have a long history of behavior, of where we came from and how we have actually developed. Now, the human values actually evolved because of the following factors. There are factors that are responsible for the involvement of human values. Among them is the fact that the impact of norms of the society on the fulfillment of the individual's needs or desires. So by implication, society has a way by which it actually brings about these human values, right? So one of the factors by which human values evolve is actually the impact of the norms in a given society, norms that have been agreed upon by individuals, right? in that particular society. Developed or modified, they can also be developed or modified by one's own awareness, even as you interact with others, your choices, your judgment in fulfilling the needs. But we need to understand that if you are not exposed, you may not be able to develop and modify your own awareness, right? By the teachings and practices of preceptors, in the Greeks, we talk about the gurus or the saviors or religious leaders. All these have a way. They may have, you know, human values that they may put on the table for their followers actually to follow. The human values may also evolve as a matter of fostered or modified by social leaders, rulers of kingdoms, or by the government. You know, even as they set laws, they can set laws that that may actually spell out the values that must be held by the members of the particular profession or members of the particular group of individuals. Right. So by definition, therefore, when we talk about virtues, all right, the Oxford Dictionary defines a virtue as a behavior that shows higher moral standards. If you do not show higher moral standards, then you do not have virtue. Now, virtues are positive and, if you like, preferred values, those values that we prefer to have. Do you know sometimes we envy how other people behave and say, I wish I could behave like that one, then I'll be fine with life, right? Even in a positive manner. So virtues are desirable attitudes or character traits, motives and emotions, those that enable us as human beings to be successful and also to act in ways that develop our highest potential, right? So when we are ethically, when we are ethically oriented, when we are men and women of virtue, it is also possible that we can actually develop our highest potential in the places where we are actually found. So they energize and enable us to pursue the ideals that we have adopted. So such virtues like honesty, courage, compassion, generosity, fidelity, integrity, fairness, transparency, self-control, prudence, all these are examples of what we call virtues. Now, these must be possessed by all means possible by you as teachers. They are akin to the moral values and ethics that we actually described earlier on in our discourse. So virtues, therefore, are tendencies which include solving problems through peaceful and constructive means, and also to follow the path of the golden mean between the extremes of excess and deficiency. Now, they are like habits. Once acquired, they become characteristics of persons. So moreover, a person who has developed virtues will naturally act in ways consistent with moral principles. When you are a person of virtue, you are consistent in the way that you actually behave. The way your attitude and your aspiration when you are found at a funeral may not be so different even when you are found at a wedding or likewise. So the virtuous person is actually the ethical person. It is actually suggested, right? So there are 4 basic types of virtues that we can discuss here. Among them, there is what we call self-direction virtues. These are needed for exercising moral autonomy, and also, they include good moral judgment, courage, perseverance, fidelity to commitments, integrity, honesty, self-understanding, and also humility. The second basic type of virtue is what they call public spirited virtue. Now, these are basically focused on the good for the public. affected by one's work and also on the good of the client. They include justice, having no intention, for harming others, intentionally or unintentionally, and also a sense of accountability to the society in which you are actually found. The fourth among the basic types of virtues is teamwork virtues. And basically, as the name suggests, they are essentially in enabling teachers to work successfully towards with others, like loyalty to the employers, cooperativeness, collegiality, loyalty, leadership qualities, and also effective communication. And then the last one of the four basic types of virtues is proficiency virtues. Now, they possess the mastery of one's craft and skills, like competence, diligence, and also creativity. So basically, these are the four types of virtues that we actually find. Now, there are also what we call civic virtues, right? Now, civic virtues are the moral duties and rights as a citizen on the village or the country, or an integral part of the society in which you are found, and also its ultimate environment. So an individual may exhibit civic virtues by voting. I know that there are people who don't like voting, but it's unethical if you are engaged, if you are not involved in that. So an individual may exhibit civic virtues by voting, by volunteering, by organizing welfare groups, clubs, and meetings. So basically, these virtues are divided into four categories. They are what we call civic virtues, self-restraint virtues, self-assertion virtues, and also self-reliant virtues. Right? Now, civic virtues, as we saw earlier on, the citizens, remember, you and I as citizens of Zambia, of Africa, and of the global village, we must be able to understand what the Constitution says about how the government is working, and also about what the government is supposed to do and what not to do. Okay? So you need to be confident. We must understand the basis of our responsibilities as citizens. Besides duties and rights, we must be able to recognize when the government or another citizen infringes upon our rights, and we must be able to speak out to this. It implies that the government requires the participation of the enlightened, right? Enlightened citizens to save and also to survive. So this is the civic knowledge that you need to have as an individual. What about self-restraint? For citizens to live in a free modern society with limited government, each citizen must be able to control or restrain himself. Otherwise, we would need a police state, right? That is a dictatorial government that would come to maintain safety and order. So the others have advocated for morality and declared that happiness is achieved and sustained through virtues and morals. Without them, then there will be no happiness, right? So they have advocated and demonstrated self-restraint several times in their private and public life. And naturally, they are able to, they tend to be great leaders when they have these virtues and morals. Self-assertion, it means that the citizens themselves must be proud of their rights and have the courage to stand up in public and defend those particular rights. Now, sometimes we know a government may usurp the verified rights that were actually created to protect the individuals. Okay, so sometimes this happens to a large extent, and in such cases, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish that government by voting it right, voting rights, rights callback, or otherwise. And we have seen how governments change and come and go as a result of that. What about self-reliance? As citizens, who cannot provide for themselves, they will need a large government to take care of them. Now, once citizens become dependent upon a government for their basic needs, the people are no longer in a position to demand that government acts within the confines of the Constitution, because it's like you will now be held hostage by the government. So self-reliant, therefore, the citizens that are self-reliant, they are free citizens in the sense that, they are not dependent on others for their basic needs. They do not need a large provider government, which has the potential to become an oppressive government to meet those needs that needs to be met. So only a strong, self-reliant citizenry will be able to enjoy fully the blessings of liberty, right? If you are a free man, you are likely to enjoy the blessings of liberty. So these civic virtues, applicable to local, state, and also central governments, they tend to nourish freedom. They tend to nourish the freedom that we hold, and also civil liberties at the root of democracy, as it were, right? So Mark Tenney's lists some of the virtues that he calls, virtues as unity, integrity, honest, self-respect, responsibility, and also accountability. Okay. Now, so basically, that's what the second section of Unit 2, the second part of Unit 2 is all about, right? So we can end here, and then we will discuss the third part of Unit 3, beginning with moral unity and integrity, as it were. Thank you so much for attending, and I expect you to join me in yet another session in the third part, of Unit 2.